Welcome to Community Roundtable. I'm Nick Burns from the Salt Lake Community College Division of Communication and Performing Arts, and today on the show our focus is South Jordan. We'll talk about development, we'll talk about traffic congestion, regional planning, and more. Joining us, he is the South Jordan City Engineer Development Services Director, Brad Klavano. Thank you for being here. And also with us today, the South Jordan Public Works Director, Jason Rasmussen. Thank you both for joining us. So, Brad, I'll jump in with you first. Tell me what you do. What's that mean, City Engineer Development Services Director? It sounds like two jobs.
It is kind of two jobs. As a city engineer, I run all the engineering operations, so development reviews. When somebody wants to develop property, they have to build the public infrastructure, roads, water, sewer, grade the lots, drainage. So we review all that. We inspect it during the construction. And then a few years ago, planning and building was added under my direction as the department head. So we do all the planning for the city, once again, development reviews and long-range planning. And then the building division reviews the private home plans and commercial plans, and then inspects those during the construction also.
So all those code inspection folks work for you.
Right.
Do you also run all the city buildings, like make sure all the furnaces at City Hall and everything run? Is that you too?
No, that's a separate department.
Separate folks?
Yeah.
Just wondered. And so Jason Rasmussen, Public Works Director.
Yes.
Flush the toilet, it works. The water works.
That's
that kind
right.
of stuff?
Just your essential city services and maintaining public infrastructure falls underneath the Public Works Department.
Do you all in South Jordan have the kinds of troubles that we see over in Draper on the hills where the roads fail after they've been put in for subdivisions and mudslides? Has that come to your way?
We don't have as steep of an area as they have over there. I mean,
Lucky
once in
you.
a while we have some roads kind of fail, crack or potholes and things like that. But for the most part, especially out west where Daybreak is, we have really good soils and those roads are holding up fairly well.
So we should remind folks, Daybreak's within your city.
Correct.
So, and that's we could have a whole show just on Daybreak.
It's a big development, yes.
So Brad, how did you come to want to work as a city engineer? Is that a career path that people seek?
Yeah, I mean, when I was back in college, I decided to go into civil engineering and received a civil engineering degree from BYU. And at the time, I was undecided whether to go to the public or to the private sector, and some opportunities came open in the public sector. And initially, I worked for Los Angeles County Department of Public Works, and then left them and went to a couple cities in California, and then ended up back in Utah about 12, 13 years ago.
So LA, I mean, millions of people, thousands and thousands and thousands of miles of roads and sewers.
Yeah.
You happy to be in South Jordan with what, 65,000 people?
A lot less people. Yes, it's better.
So Jason, what about for you? Come to public service work and run sewers, and I mean, that's like invisible work.
I took a more atypical route.
Yeah?
When I got a degree in business and started as the city's fleet manager, the first fleet manager, so overseeing the city's fleet, everything from fire trucks down to lawnmowers.
Yeah.
And then as the city continued to grow, I had some opportunities to move into the Public Works Department, work with streets, water, stormwater, and garbage. And then my boss retired about 5 years ago, and I succeeded him, and I've kind of learned the business as I've been in it.
So I think of that book that was out a few years ago, The World Without Us, how cities would fall apart and go back to nature sometimes within days without folks like what you do. So I wonder, how do you sell that to the public, that what you all do is critical, but everybody just takes it for granted?
We do have some things that we're doing to be proactive to try to extend the life of the assets and not have a disruption, and so that the public doesn't notice us. But we do also make efforts in utilizing social media and other means to sell the worth and the value that residents get from their taxes and fees.
Are you doing that work too? Are you running the Twitter feed?
No, we have a professional PIO that does that, and we work closely together to get the message out.
Okay. So Brad, is your job, I want to say, is your position kind of more political because you're more on the development side, and what are we going to build where, and how many homes, and who's going to pay for the road? And
whether we should have higher density housing, not have higher density housing, whether this area should be zoned for this type of development or not. And so some of that is a little politically driven, and sometimes controversial planning projects are brought before the planning commission or the city council, and that can become somewhat political depending on what the project is, where it is.
I mean, we could talk about golf courses, right? Certainly we could get political, and maybe we'll get back to that. South Jordan's city manager form of government, right?
Yes.
So you both work for the city manager?
Yes.
So it's what we would not terribly meanly call a weaker mayor, right? Because you've got a city manager and a council.
Correct, yeah.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about South Jordan, one of the fastest growing cities in the country. What, 60, 70,000 people? And your growth rate is, I mean, you've grown, what, a third in the last 5 or 6 years?
Yeah, I think when I started 12 years ago, it was only about 30 or 35,000.
So you've doubled.
Within the Daybreak development, there is still a lot of room for growth.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So is Daybreak zoned differently in terms of lot size and density and green space?
Yeah, they have what's called a planned community development zone, and they can kind of develop however they want as long as they don't exceed their entitlements of 20-some thousand residential units, and then so much square footage on non-residential, and then they have to have so much open space as part of the development. So they seem to kind of cluster their developments in little smaller areas and then do a lot of open space and parks, and been very successful, obviously, because they're selling homes really fast up there.
And fairly green, fairly energy efficient.
Yes, they do a lot of that too.
And so basically the city then is just giving them a cap. You can have this many dwellings, but you can, I mean, how many condos or how many single families or duplexes, that's up to them.
Yeah. They had some early planning type of, documents and, some master plans of how they were going to put single family in certain areas and higher density in others. But they do intermix it. They have these mansion homes, which are like fourplexes, look like a humongous house.
But it's a fourplex, right?
But it's a fourplex intermixed with, residential homes. Seems to be fairly successful.
Okay. When we come back, I want to talk some more about development, maybe outside of Daybreak. And I also want to talk about sort of the development on the non-residential side, but what are people doing for work?
Okay.
Keep it tuned to Community Roundtable. We'll be back and talk more about South Jordan and development and resources. Keep it tuned. We'll be right back. We are back on Community Roundtable. Thank you for joining us, talking with Brad Klavano and Jason Rasmussen from South Jordan. When we left off, we were talking about the explosive growth. I mean, you mentioned basically doubling the size of the city in 5 or 8 years. That's stunning.
About 12 years, but yeah, quite a bit.
Huge.
Of growth. Yeah.
What do all these people do? Do they work in South Jordan, or everybody's coming and going in 9 to 5?
Down on the river bottoms in South Jordan, Riverfront Parkway, we have a large office development down there, and I do believe a lot of the residents work in that area. But a lot of them are getting on I-15 and commuting into the Salt Lake or other areas.
So that development, that would be what, doctors, dentists, insurance, like white collar kind of office, or?
White collar, yes.
Okay. Do you have people working at local, I mean, I'm sure you do, local strip malls or restaurants or that kind of stuff too? Not
I would
so much?
assume so, yeah.
Okay.
But there's a lot of professional type of people living in South Jordan, and so they're, I assume, going to professional office buildings to work and
somewhere.
Yeah.
If all these people are commuting, how does that affect your ability to do good planning, right? I mean, if you can think of LA, where they used to do those cul-de-sacs and they became nightmares when they got built out because everybody fed onto one street and it was traffic jam like mad. And here in Utah, it seems like we don't have a real good grasp on public transportation yet. So how do you plan for 20 years from now if everybody's going to hit I-15 and drive to Salt Lake or wherever to work? I mean, how do you plan that far ahead?
We do work closely with Wasatch Front Regional Council in developing a transportation master plan for the whole valley. And so they have a 2040 plan that shows all these major roadways and to get in and out of the southern part of the valley. South Jordan's kind of unique. And so we have 2 major corridors that go east and west. That's 114th South and 104 South.
Okay.
And they're UDOT roads from I-15 to Bangor, and then from Bangor west, they're city roads. We do work closely with UDOT, trying to time the signals. We're in the process of working with them, expanding 104 South from Redwood to I-15 right now, from 2 lanes in each direction to 3 lanes in each direction. Because the capacity has been reached. There's like 35,000 cars a day on that stretch of road, and they project it to be almost 60,000 by 2040.
Whoa.
So,
in spite of trying to get people on the bus or the train.
right. The other
Wow.
the other thing I think is really important that will happen to the community, will change drastically things, is as UDOT expands Bangor Highway to a freeway, which they're working on now, but it's going to take a number of years to completely be done. And the Mountain View corridor, when that gets all the way connected to I-80, and in particular when it becomes a freeway, that will help funnel a lot of traffic from the west. They'll go north to catch either the 21st South Freeway or the 80 or something to get into Salt Lake, and that should help disperse a lot of the traffic ultimately.
But so often I hear and read these plans, but then when the roads are done, they're just, no matter what, they're instantly packed already.
Yeah, the growth does kind of keep us all hopping. We're fortunate in South Jordan a little bit. We do have the tracks that comes out into daybreak. I think that helps pull some people off. We do have the front runner down on Jordan Gateway that has a station in South Jordan. And obviously the transit needs to expand, more buses, more of those things. And I hope that UTA will continue to work on that, and we'll work with them on that.
Well, you had, was it Rich Cunningham who running for mayor, right? He pitched that.
Right.
He's not in the race anymore, I don't think, but
Correct.
he pitched you should have your own bus system, which seemed problematic, but interesting.
Yeah, we've talked about that over the years, and even did a study on our own circulator to
Okay.
in between the UTA transit stops, the trains. It's very difficult to fund that. Not only to buy the buses and stuff, but to operate them is the real expensive thing.
And nobody wants to pay for it.
Right. We like our cars out west, that's for sure.
Well, and in fairness, most of our western cities grew up in the car world as
Correct.
opposed to farther back east when cities grew up before the car. So you had subways and whatnot
Right.
before cars. Here,
Correct.
it was cars, cars, cars.
Sure.
What about the shape of the city, this long, skinny city you have? How's that affect your ability to move sewage around and pump and all that and water? That sounds like far more difficult than if you just had a little square.
Yeah. Fortunately, we do a fair amount of planning with master plans for our water system and other systems that handle the public, and there has to have needed booster stations to push water out west
Okay.
from our supplier to get it out there, and there might be some additional ones as the growth continues.
Do you give tax rebates or anything for that kind of stuff, or do you just bill them for it?
Well, we do have impact fees. So as they develop, the impact fees pay for the oversizing to protect them for fire protection and the high peak watering periods.
Right.
And then they have to build the local infrastructure that ties in, and then as they pay the impact fees, we use those to build tanks and to expand trunk lines and things like that to help feed the development areas.
And are you all mostly single-family homes? Or
Good percentage.
So again, that makes fire and sewage and everything more expensive, right? Because fewer
out a little bit
dwellings per acre and whatnot. It would be really great just to put in an apartment building, right?
Yeah.
Does South Jordan, I mean, if you look at Murray and Sandy and some other places, we see these huge developments going in right on the tracks line. You know, condos, shopping, retail, offices on the main floor, ground level, and then people living up above, and you're right on the tracks line. And, you know, you don't have to use your car every day. Do the people of South Jordan believe in that, or if people live out there, that's not what they want?
Well, the tracks comes into Daybreak.
Right.
And so Daybreak believes in it. As they develop, that's what they want to do along the tracks line up there.
And they're having success, clearly. They're selling homes.
Right, and they're just now starting to submit development projects along the tracks line up there. I mean, they did at the end of the tracks line. We have the University of Utah Hospital out there and a few things, and now they're submitting for projects along the tracks line. As far as down on the front runner, we do have a kind of a TOD project there. We have a couple large office buildings going in right there.
Okay.
And an Embassy Suite Hotel. And then across the street, there's a big apartment complex that first phase was completed a year ago or so, and the second phase is under construction right now.
Interesting.
So we have been trying to look at that, promote it along the transit corridors.
So when we come back, I want to ask about that. I'm kind of surprised a hotel going in. I mean, I guess we need hotels everywhere, but it's not like you have a soccer stadium or something. And I also want to ask some more about this east-west, because that's what we hear so many people kvetch about, how to get east-west.
Sure.
So plenty to talk about roads and so on in South Jordan. When we come back on Community Roundtable, we'll talk more about South Jordan. We are back on Community Roundtable talking about South Jordan. So we left off kind of talking about roads. We were talking about Bangerter and Mountain View Corridor. There's all these freeways, and somehow whenever they get built, they're full right away. But what about taking care of all the roads? I mean, how do you? I know everybody calls. We started off talking about that a while back. Everybody calls, oh my God, there's a divot in my front, street. But how do you figure out and prioritize where to fix and what to do and when?
It's a good question. So we have over 450 lane miles of road, so quite a bit, and that grows every year.
Yeah.
With the growth of the city, as we've been talking. And so years ago, it was fill a pothole when someone called. When the road starts to fill, then we'd come in and do an expensive replacement of it. And so over the past 7 to 10 years, we've taken a more proactive approach. So we've inventoried. We've taken that 450 miles of road. We've split it into 4,000 segments. And we inspect that road every 3 years and give it a condition rating from 1 to 100. And we use that condition rating to determine what the appropriate treatment is to prolong the life. And so most roads are built to last about 20 years. And what we're doing is applying a very inexpensive treatment to preserve the asphalt that will help us get 30 to 40 years out of the life of the road.
That's that slurry coat where you just kind of put the thin oil.
Yes.
So I'm shocked when somebody comes into South Jordan, they build a subdivision, you work with them, they have to build the infrastructure and all that, and you're letting them build a road that only lasts 20 years?
In reality, will they last longer than that? Probably, but what we do on top of it with our preventive maintenance program, it helps extend the life even more.
But I mean, if it were me, if I was buying a house, I'm planning to live in my house 50 or whatever years, and yet the road out front, I'm going to get taxed for because it'll have to be. Just seems like you got to make them build 50-year roads.
Well, with asphalt, if you don't do the preventative maintenance, the sun just bakes it and it dries that out, and if you do nothing, it'll only last 20, 25 years. It'll crack, it'll start to fall apart. And once water gets down through the cracks
then you're shot.
You get the freeze thaw and you have problems. So if you do the preventative maintenance, then you extend that life significantly. And in South Jordan, we're both fortunate and unfortunate. We have all these new roads. And if we get on it early and do preventative maintenance, we can make them last a long time and save the taxpayers a lot of money. But if we don't, they'd all fail at the same time. And then we would have a huge cost.
That would be awkward.
Right.
Yeah.
So it'd be challenging.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
What about sidewalks and that kind of thing? Is that part of all this as well that you take care of?
It is, yeah. We have about the same mileage of sidewalks, and so we go out and do condition assessments every 5 years on sidewalks. We have our lists and prioritize based on severity of trip hazards and other types of deformities in the sidewalks. Yeah. And we'll go out and we have a few different means of fixing those to try to eliminate the trip hazards that exist. Do
people walk around in South Jordan?
They do, yeah, they do. Just my experience with living in the city, I'm always seeing people in my neighborhood walk around, and
good.
You have nice neighborhoods that are fairly quiet for the most part, and you do have a lot of foot traffic around.
No, that's great. Whether it's not necessarily walking to work, but just out and about, howdy neighbor, right? I mean, there isn't enough of that. So roads. I mean, everybody's got a car. That's your market, right? Are you all involved in trying to convince people to get out of their car? Are you trying to get people into the buses? Or?
To be honest, it hasn't been real aggressive. We do have a transportation master plan that addresses biking and transit and some of those things, but it hasn't been a large or a huge focus. We're going to update our transportation master plan this year, and we're going to spend a little more focus on that. And we do need to work with UTA more to provide more transit.
I mean, that seems to be the dilemma, especially for younger cities like our whole Wasatch Front here, that are you all at the city level leading or following? right? That as long as your population wants to drive for a quart of milk, it's pretty hard to convince them to park it, right,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
take the train, right, when nobody wants to and nobody grew up with a train. And
Yeah, one of the things we have done in the past few years, Brad's group's work to get bike lanes painted on roads is we
good.
redo roads and we restripe them. And so from that standpoint, the city's trying to be proactive about providing a safe space on the side of the road to where residents can ride their bikes and maybe feel like they have that buffer
that'd be nice.
within there. So a lot of bike lanes have been added throughout the city.
So one of the things about electric cars that always strikes me is, you know, once you buy a Prius or you buy some other brand of electric car, it makes it easier to live out in South Jordan or Harriman, or you can live farther away because it's cheaper to commute. So are you all actively working to encourage electric cars, or does that really outside the scope of your work?
I would say it's outside the scope of the
Yeah.
work.
Just
Yeah.
wondered.
Yeah.
Road construction projects. I have a whole list here. Redwood Road, 10,400 South, 9,800 South. You mentioned some other roads already that are slowly being built.
So yeah, UDOT is doing 104 South from Redwood to I-15 right now.
Okay.
That's expanding from 2 lanes in each direction to 3. Redwood Road is master planned to be converted to 3 lanes in each direction at some point by UDOT.
Okay.
Don't know the timing of that yet. Right now we have Bangerter and 114 South interchange under construction, similar to what's happened at 78th and at Redwood on Bangerter. And so that's under construction. Should greatly help the traffic congestion in and around the district when it's done. Just ask the public to be patient for the next year
Right.
because construction is a problem.
Everybody wants it done.
Right.
And nobody wants to wait.
And then 104 South in Bangerter is programmed by UDOT for 2022 to be under I think,
A few years out.
yeah, 2022, I
Okay.
think, to be under construction. They may move that up. We hope they do. We're going to try to get it moved up. And then I'd mentioned, I think earlier, you know, we've been trying to pressure UDOT to make sure they get Mountain View extended to a freeway connection and then ultimately to build the freeway. Because what's been built in South Jordan and most of the communities down south is just the future frontage roads, and then the freeway will go in the middle in the future.
Interesting. So real quick, we've only got a couple minutes left. I want to pivot because we're almost into the winters, and so snow plowing, snow removal.
Yes.
Jason, that's you.
Yes.
So huge.
Yes, we have a fleet of 26 trucks that when the snow flies, we get out on the road. We actually do some road pre-treatments before, where we spray a brine solution before the snowstorm hits, and that allows that brine solution to dry on the road, and then as the snow falls, it makes it so the ice doesn't build up and we can push it off.
Push it off. So that's snow plowing, but you've also got places you've got to remove it. Dig it and push it, right? Take
For
it
the most
somewhere
part,
else.
we just plow.
Okay.
We plow it to the side of the road, and South Jordan's an area that's open enough and where we have the responsibility for the roads that it's plowed off to the side, and we really don't get into the removal business
Okay.
where we're taking it and transporting it to
to
another
move it
area.
somewhere else to dump
Yeah.
it. Okay.
Yep.
Well, we're going to have to leave it there. Brad Klavano, excuse me. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Invisible work, I know, but thank you for being on more political side of things. And Jason Rasmussen, Public Works Director in South Jordan. Again, thankless work most of the time, I'm guessing.
Thank you.
Well, thank you
Thanks
both.
for having us
And
here.
come back again when all these road projects are done.
Okay.
We'll have
So-
pictures.
Sounds good.
Very good.
Thanks.
Thank you for joining us on Community Roundtable. For information about all Salt Lake Community College academic and community programs, for student resources, upcoming campus events, and everything else, go to slcc.edu. That's slcc.edu. I'm Nick Burns, and we'll see you next time on Community Roundtable.